Well, the Oriental magpie robin flew the nest today, and his first little jaunt out of the nest, out of the box, landed in the bush just the other side of the wall here. That was good. Mum and Dad came along, fed him for a couple of times, but then he decided to take a flight and flew straight into our kitchen. So I've now picked him up out of the kitchen. He's still alive, and I'm going to put him back by the box so that Mum and Dad can see him, and hopefully he will take a second flight out of the box today. And hear Dad in the background.
So what must be killing people is trying to understand what they are seeing here. This is a 64-year-old man wearing male clothing, sounding like a man, acting, to all intents and purposes, in a fairly masculine way. But beneath it, there is a history. There is a struggle, there is a fight with that masculinity.
มาแล้ว
เนี่ยมันอยู่ที่แคมป์เนี่ยก่อนเคยอยู่ด้วยกันที่พอดีเจ้าที่เขาไปอยู่ข้างนอกเลยไม่มีใครให้มันกินน่ะ
ครับ
Come to know the term role model. I had the role model of my father. There are Thai farmers must have a middle name of pyromaniac. And I'll bring George Floyd back into this again. I just wish that the Western culture that holds such racist and bigoted opinions on people were to step back, relax, and realise that we are all human beings. We have all got rights, equal rights, to exist on this planet. Today, I want to talk to you about where I've come from, how I've arrived where I am now. I want to talk to you about the depths of my emotions since I was very, very young. I would hope that people would find such love and peace that I have found, but the path I've travelled to get here, I would not wish on anybody. I'm going to have this coffee and brownie, and I'm going to take you off down to Erawan Cave. It's something we visited together 6 months ago. It was my first video talking to camera. It was my first vlog, and to be quite honest, I was absolutely petrified. I was scared stiff. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what was needing to be said to express what I was seeing. I fudged it. I made the best I could of it. A few people commented at the time, a good video, were very kind. Thank you very much. And many people along the way have joined and subscribed to my channel and support me and comment regularly. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. After today, I do hope that you will appreciate the journey, not just from 6 months ago, but the last 64 years. Let's go to Erawan Cave. มาแล้ว
เนี่ยมันอยู่ที่แคมป์เนี่ยแต่ก่อนเคยอยู่ด้วยกันที่พอดีเจ้าที่เขาไปอยู่ข้างนอกเลยไม่มีใครให้มันกินน่ะ
ครับ
Let me take you back to when I was 12. I was going to school 3 miles away from my home on a bus, and that bus journey didn't scare me. I was quite happy to get on a bus and travel. I wanted to go out, go somewhere new. I didn't feel any fear from when I was travelling in a strange place or with strange people. It didn't worry me at all. I'd grown up with older parents. My parents were in their mid-30s when they gave birth to me. And I grew up feeling that there was a total shift from my life style to other people's. My mum and dad ran a fruit and veg business in Sandhurst, and I'm getting stung by a bee. This business took all their time, and it meant that 6 days a week I was left to my own devices. I had 2 sisters, but by the time I was 8, they had left the nest. They had left the home. When we first moved into this home, I was 4, and there were 2 bedrooms in the townhouse. It was a shop and then 2 stories above that. There were 2 bedrooms. My sisters, they had the back bedroom, and that looked out over fields, over to beautiful nature outside in the country. And my parents had the front room, and that looked over the main road. I slept in a box room. The box room had no windows. It had a door onto the top landing, and my mum and dad slept next door. I was in that room for 4 years, until I was actually released at 8. As an 8-year-old, I was given my own room, and I could look over the countryside at the back, and I loved it. But because I was actually given so much time to my own devices, I went out on my bike, rode around the wonderful Sandhurst Royal Military Academy before Princess Anne got there and all the barriers went up and the IRA came along and caused the security issues. I used to ride for miles and miles and miles and just go out and get lost. It was wonderful. Out into the forests, out into the lakes and the countryside of the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. Immediately behind our home were fields that had horses, and I loved looking at these horses, these animals. I'd see foxes. It was wonderful. My life was in my space. Wherever I went, I felt at home, alone. I didn't have friends because I had lost this connection with a friendship with family, because we weren't a very sociable family. There were people living in the area that were girls that I was near to, but they didn't go to the same school. The school I went to, 3 miles away, I was on the border of the catchment area, and all the boys, they were over the other side of the catchment area. So one thing led to another. I spent a lot of time alone, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. In my first couple of years at school, I felt that I didn't fit in. And a boy came to the school, I can remember now quite clearly. He had beautiful, strong, piercing eyes. Soft, but piercing. He had a lovely round face, beautiful white teeth. His body was similar to mine. I was fat. We ended up in playing rugby. We were in the rugby team. We were all heavy. That guy made a massive change to my life. His name was Murad Butt. He was black. He was the only black boy I had ever met until then. He, like me, was struggling. He was struggling to settle into an environment that either wasn't accepting him, and I didn't realise that until much later, or that he didn't feel comfortable there because everybody else was different. I could empathise with that, and that was really, I think, my first friend. Friend as in I wanted to be associated with him. I'll talk a bit more about friends later. Until I knew Murad, the people I'd known were girls. And I know from a very, very young age, 3, 4, that I was always attracted to women. Women made me feel comfortable. Women made me feel happy. Women made me feel warm. And I guess that was because there was an absence. There was an absence of a man in my life. That man was busy. He was always working. There was no other man in my life. That man spent his whole life running a business. He had a family. He had 3 children. He had a wife. But I know at the end of his life, he didn't really know about those 3 children, about his wife, apart from what he'd allowed them to do, to feel. He didn't understand them. He didn't have a life with them. In actual fact, in his later life, he ended up in choosing other people to go and have a daily life with. Poor mum. Murad made this change in me because he enabled me to see that there was somebody like me. That there was somebody else on this planet that wasn't a woman, and that wasn't like the boys I was seeing around me who were being boys. They were being masculine. They were growing. Their hormones were bursting out. Their hormones were telling them to be male. And from that period on in my life, I realised that I was struggling with masculinity. Masculinity that would cause me throughout my life until now, till very recently actually, to struggle with people. Struggle with roles in life based upon masculine, feminine. Jumping way, way, way forward, I didn't come to terms with my masculinity until I actually wanted to chop it off. And I did. I chopped my masculinity off because I wanted to sever that part of me that disagreed with masculinity so much. And I wanted to be non-male. God, this has got deep so quickly. There used to be a building here, and the guy down the bottom there, feeding the dogs, he'd brought some food and some water into the forest to feed those dogs. He said there used to be about 30 odd here, but now there's only about 9. He was telling me this place is on fire, and he'd put some water on it to douse the fire, but the building's gone. There used to be like a little sala, bamboo roof sala that people could sit in halfway up the stairs here. We go up to the top of the mountain, drop down to the cave. It's really going to be cool in there, so I'm looking forward to the air conditioning in there. Well, I'm stood now at the mouth of the cave. The cave entrance drops down by the side of these little Buddha images, these little forest Buddhas. Behind me was a shack, and this shack used to be the home for a map of the cave, showing you the length and the little branches of the cave system. It also gave some shade when you wanted to just relax and sit out at the top of the cave. I continued through school knowing that there was a them and me, and I understood that I wasn't like anybody else. Everybody seemed to want to be friendly with each other, and I was struggling to be friendly with anybody, apart from Murad. That then went on to be duplicated almost when another guy came to the school, and his name was Lee. He was from China, and this guy was totally different to Murad. This guy was totally different to everyone else, but I could see he was struggling to fit in, to be accepted. Until this point in time, I had gone through my life feeling that all the boys around me were aiming for something that I didn't want. They were competing in sports and being successful. I tried rugby. It was just too game orientated. You had to win, you had to win, you had to win. Power. And that's what it all comes down to. I don't have a problem with power. I have a problem with people who seek power. I have a problem with people who identify with needing to take charge, needing to take power, to be the strong. I have a problem with people delegating from a powerful position. So I recognised, or shall I say identified, that men were typically goal seekers. I was naive. I didn't have a very broad catchment of men to base my assumptions on. But I had eyes, I had ears. And when I used to go along as a 13, 14-year-old with my dad to a committee meeting of the fishing club in Camberley, we would sit in a smoky, tweed-wearing, pipe-smoking room with all men. After all, it was the working men's club that we were sat in, and Mum was downstairs playing bingo. And I would see all of the men in the room in a similar light. They all had similar traits. I couldn't distinguish one from the other. They all had different names, they all had different hairstyles and whatever, but they all fitted into a category which I was seeing as masculine. And again, I was continuing to reject it. I didn't want anything to do with masculinity. Go away, fly. I didn't rush off to femininity. I didn't rush off to find feminism. I didn't rush off to be with women. I actually just wanted to step back from being a male. I did that by keeping myself isolated, isolating myself away from masculinity, because I was expected to be masculine. I was expected to be on a track, on a rail track, and follow these rails. I was expected to be the male that society depended upon me being. I was a boy. I must be a man. And I therefore must follow the role of a male. How sad that I had what I later in life come to know, the term role model. I had the role model of my father. I look so much like him. I have his appearance. But I lacked that role model to have a broad understanding of life, because he was very narrow-minded. And coming from a Victorian period, a post-war, struggling to make ends meet, making a business and running it 6 days a week, these parents didn't know any different, didn't know any better. They weren't educated well, they certainly weren't academic. I had problems reading books because they didn't read books. They had a newspaper delivered, but it was a very basic newspaper, and that was the only print that was actually in the house. Yeah, different times. So I formed on the back of that. I developed into me on the back of that. Well, I can tell you the temperature down here is around about 20 degrees Celsius. It's cool. It's so refreshing after having been up in the heat of the sun upstairs. And there are no flies down here. That's wonderful. So behind me you can see the cave goes off for about 150 metres. People have been down here starting fires, and they've had a fire in a hearth behind this little stone outcrop here. I tell you, pyromaniacs. Many Thai people, farmers. I thought it was a bat that landed on the camera then, but it just flew behind. There are Thai farmers must have a middle name of pyromaniac. Everywhere you go is burning, and this cave is no exception. Yeah, there's a bat buzzing around upstairs. Wonderful. Okay, so I hope you're not too bored with this story today. I'm hoping that I'm bringing you a story of my history. It's not over by any means. I've got a lot to tell you. I wanted to come here to tell you this story because out of many of the places I go to, this is one of the isolated and remote places where I feel very content. I feel very happy. I feel I can come here and be close to nature and be close with things that I love and feel happy with. So this sort of environment just appeals to me because I enjoy that. I enjoy this earth. I enjoy those trees. I enjoy those rocks. This is the land I was not born in. But where I was born, there were green fields, trees, nature, horses, foxes. Stuff that actually existed on this planet that I could relate to, enjoy sharing. There was no them and us. It was we. I have grown up despising, absolutely despising prejudice. I've grown up despising bigotry. I've grown up feeling that if people didn't want to accept me, I accepted myself and would be on my own. The bigotry that exists in society wasn't going to affect me. Oh no, I'm going to rise over that. I'm confident enough in my own shoes to actually say, to hell with that. I'm going to go on through that. The prejudice that's in society, I hate it, I loathe it, I despise it. But I have to live in society. Well, that went on till I was about 26, 28, 26, when I met what then became my wife. And my wife showed me how to love. I didn't know how to love, or that I had love inside me until then. I knew I had affection, I knew I had a heart, and I knew that I had infatuation, but I didn't know how to love, how to care, how to feel at one with another and feel that you were soulmates. I experienced that soulmate, true love, for 17 years. Easter Monday, that just disappeared. She passed away very quickly, within hours. Massive brain hemorrhage. We had a wonderful life together. It was like watching the water running when you're turning the tap on, and then just turning that tap off, and no water came out. I was devastated. Still am. Still am. When she passed away, I was absolutely devastated and lost. I was left in limbo. I was left in a world that I couldn't associate with anymore. My home, grand home, I was in a good job, I was relatively wealthy, well off. I could do what I wanted to do in my life. And I reassessed where I was, what I wanted to do. I went to see my GP and talked to her about how I felt, the feelings I'd had, and asked her for her advice. I had been reading a magazine in a dentist waiting room and had seen that there was another person who also felt this way. This person was a respected administrator of a well-known university in England, and this magazine I was reading captured their life story and explained to me that a person who did not identify as a male, who felt that they were not male, could be classed as a transsexual. Bang! The term transsexual had never entered my mind until then. This light bulb moment actually allowed me to hold this discussion with my GP with sincerity, and she referred me to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist, after a couple of visits, referred me to specialists, and the specialists referred me to another specialist, and on we went for this circus for another 12 months minimum. And I eventually transitioned full-time as a woman, leading the life of a woman, knowing with all the caveats behind all of that about, well, you're not a woman from birth and you're only a man dressed as a woman, blah blah blah. And I was on the waiting list for the surgery. I was going to go full-time. I was going to go the whole way. And after a few years, the specialists that were handling me, they said to me, "I'm sorry, but our funds have been cut yet again, and we're unable to put you onto our surgery list for at least another 5 years." So one could see that there was this prioritising going on, and I was now in limbo. I'd been living, working socialising as a woman. I'd spent so much effort in getting to where I was to be non-male that now I was in no man's land, excuse the pun. The feeling at that stage was, I can't go back, I've got to go forward. And by now I'd met some other transsexuals, and these were people who were in the same situation as me, and I got to learn that there were people going to Thailand. It wasn't expensive, it was good service, it was a successful job, and that to do this operation made them feel that they had completed their journey. It helped them move on. It helped them move out of no man's land to a place that they could then start their life again, that they could grow. Looked at stuff online and thought, that's where I'm going to go, that's where I'm going to have my operation. After lots of soul searching, I booked the flight, came out to Thailand and had the operation. Stayed a month and was very, very well cared for. And I was exposed to life in Thailand. I'd never been to Thailand in my life. I stayed here for 1 month as requirement for surgical purposes, and met some interesting people here, and got to know a little bit about the country. And in the next year I came out here about 3 more times on holidays, and as I said, I was fairly well off and in a good job, and I could come away for short periods of time on holidays to enjoy myself, but finding more of what I'd fallen in love with, Thailand. I felt instantly attracted to a place that had people that had no oppression on me. They weren't Western people. These people were in a different culture. The Thai culture was immediately something I wanted to be part of. I wanted it to be my life, my future. And every time I went back to England after I'd come here for my holidays, I tried to find more people in England that were Thai. I went to Thai restaurants, I went to a Thai temple, I went to anything that was Thai related. And there was one particular Thai restaurant I went to in Woking, and I went there a number of times, and the waitresses there were always very attentive and interesting to hear me speak to them and practice my Thai with them, and know that I had been to Thailand, and know that I was learning Thai language through audio and reading, and know that I'd been to parts of Thailand that they were familiar with. They were enjoying the discussion with me. And there was a very formally dressed, very attractive, mature looking Thai waitress attending to me, who stood by my side here, not in front of me, but by my side. Chopsticks in her hair, long earrings, traditional dress. And time after time, I felt that I wanted to know this person more. Nattaporn. It was 3 months before she moved into my flat in England, and it was 6 months before we moved out here. I fell instantly in love with this woman. I met her in the restaurant and thought she was older than me. I met her the day out that we arranged to meet up and have a chat at a local, I think it was Sainsbury's, Tesco, in Blackwater. And I thought, this is not the same woman. She looks about 20 years younger now. The formal dress and the makeup, the hairstyle had all gone. Here was a young, absolutely stunning, exciting, beautiful Thai woman. I'd already previously to that made my plans when I had the operation. to leave the work I was doing and leave the country. I was like all over the show thinking, well, what would be nice? I need some sun, I need some hot weather, I need a climate that's not the same as the UK, and I need a culture that's different. And because of the operation and coming here to Thailand and falling in love with Thailand, it was like another piece of the jigsaw. It just happened. So I can hear you asking, how come we can see what, to all intents and purposes, looks like a man? The answer is in here. In here, I am content to show my outside to be a male. I am content to actually be male in appearance, because here in Thailand I don't have to follow a template. I don't have to follow a role of masculine. I don't have to be masculine here. Albeit that I have now gone 180 degrees and I'm more masculine than I was 20 plus years ago. But the issue is that I'm content up here to be how I am. And that's the most important thing to have learnt over these 64 years, to being content up here. The battle is over. The war has been won. I've got no desire to change, hide, run, be oppressed. I'm just being free, just being me. And I'll bring George Floyd back into this again. I just wish that the Western culture that holds such racist and bigoted opinions on people were to step back, relax, and realise that we are all human beings. We have all got rights, equal rights, to exist on this planet. We have all the ability to live freely. There should be no racism, there should be no bigotry, there should be no oppression. I don't feel oppressed in Thailand, and I feel very, very fortunate and very lucky. I'm so happy. Thanks for joining me in this video. I hope you found it interesting. Please leave me a comment below. Let me know some of your thoughts. I'm willing to answer any question you have. Please drop me a line. Thanks again. Until next time, see you. Bye bye.